The following conversations are taken from our channel membership exclusive weekly live show that we do on Saturdays from 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time called Members Talk Live. Find out how you can become a member and appear on the show. All of the information is down in the description below, as well as all of the links to the channels of today's guests. Check them out, and I hope to talk with you very soon. Today's topic, guys, is the MCU on Disney Plus. Their shows, have they done more harm or good to the brand overall? Because we just finished with Secret Invasion, so now we have 8 live action shows, 9 shows in total with What If. And I think it's time to reevaluate a little bit how these shows have affected the MCU's legacy. So we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to get started with this conversation. I got some wonderful channel members down here that I'm going to talk to today. I'm so excited. So let's bring them on. Let's start with Jonah from the Cosmic Broadcast.
Zach Milne, the man, the myth, the legend. Zach Milne talks movies. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? Thank you so much for being here, man. Thanks for being a channel member. I cannot thank you enough. I'm very excited to get into this conversation with you.
Absolutely. I feel like this is going to be something that's either going to go well or is going to cause a lot of controversy. Either way, I'm pretty sure we're all here for it. So I can't wait.
I'm sure we'll get a lot of both. So first thing I want to ask you first off the bat is MCU. What's your history with it? Where was your entrance into it? And how have you felt about it up until this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of two schools of people that got introduced into the MCU. There's the comic book people that got into the MCU, and then it's the MCU people who got into comic books after that. I was the one who got introduced to the MCU before I started reading comic books. So I got started with, I think it was Thor. Ironically, it was one of the first MCU movies I'd ever watched, and I didn't really see much. I don't know. I didn't enjoy it as much as I do now. And so I was like, this maybe isn't for me. I came back a couple years later and started binging, starting with Age of Ultron of all movies. And from then on out, something clicked and I got hooked. And I think Ant-Man came out right after that. And I started just binging every single movie that came out. And then I got to Civil War and I was like, wait a minute. I should really start doing some due diligence before I go into some of these movies because I can follow enough, but I want to know more. So I started going to Barnes and Noble and reading comic books and finding, used comic books from the thrift store, stuff like that. And I think that really added to my enjoyment of the MCU. And then that's when I started to call myself a full-blown super fan around 2017, 2018, where I consumed every single thing MCU. I studied all of the YouTube videos that I could possibly find about theories and expectations. And coming to where I am now, where I've been doing YouTube for about a year, that's how I got started, was just a random movie that I just decided to put on one day, being Thor.
So I think we all kind of are asking ourselves, what was it about Thor that got you so hooked on the MCU?
All right, so I like
that movie, but a lot of people do not like that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've got a all MCU movies ranked coming up soon, and Thor is definitely going to be a hot button topic. But ironically, and you're going to laugh, as a Star Wars fan, I was a Star Wars fan before I was anything else. Natalie Portman. Because when I was younger, she was my child. When she was my child, she was my childhood crush when I was younger. And when I got older, I was like, you know what? Natalie Portman's in this. Chris Hemsworth is in it. Why not? So I cannot even say it was because of the Marvel branding. It was because of the actors, and that's why they pay them the big bucks.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. So, I mean, you go Thor, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, and then Civil War, it seems like really is where you got super invested in Civil War. So that brings us into Phase 3. When you think back on Marvel Phase 3, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings about it? How do you remember Phase 3?
I believe Phase 3 is the best phase of the entire MCU. That was when Marvel literally could not do any wrong. It was just hit after hit after hit after hit. Even Captain Marvel, I talk about this all the time. I am not a fan of the Captain Marvel movie for multiple reasons, but yet it made $1 billion.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
You can't convince me that Captain Marvel would have made $1 billion either in 2012 or even right now, I'd say in like 20 through 2023, and we'll get a peek of that with Captain Marvel 2. The Marvel's coming out, maybe to see if maybe, that's what the MCU needs to get a jump start. But in Phase 3, Marvel could do no wrong. I mean, it had powerhouses like Thor Ragnarok, which was a complete switch on the character of Thor, but in a good way. And you had Age of Ultron. I mean, not Age of Ultron. You had Endgame and Infinity War, and just again, dub after dub. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, they were doing incredible job. And they had the world in their hands. Like honestly, everybody was captivated by the MCU. Even people in my life that like never watched the comic book movies, never read the comic books, they were going to see Infinity War. They were going to see Endgame. Like they were jazzed on this stuff. So we get to the end of Endgame in
Mhm.
2019 and they start announcing Disney Plus. And what comes with Disney Plus but the Marvel Cinematic Universe shows. Now this was a big thing back in the day. What do you remember when they announced the shows and how were you feeling about the shows?
I can take you right back to the day. I was hyped to the max. I was so excited. Max, shout out to the other streaming or the other competitor to Disney Plus. Anyway, I was hyped to the max. I was so excited. I was like, you're literally going to take one of my favorite forms of media, which is the MCU, and you're going to translate that into TV shows now, where I can get back then I didn't know it was going to be only pretty much 6 episodes if you're not counting She-Hulk, I think. But we're going to get 6 to 10 episodes, and it's all I had knowledge wise about MCU shows before that, and it wasn't really an MCU show, but Daredevil, Daredevil, Punisher, the ground level heroes. And I was like, if we're going to get stuff like that, we're going to be eating. This is going to be amazing. I can't wait. And man, if I could go back and just talk to my younger self and just tell myself to slow down a little bit and let it kind of run its course a little bit, I would totally take that chance if I could. But in the moment, to answer your question, so hyped because I felt like Marvel needed a direction after Endgame.
Right.
And I was like, well, if they're going to retool everything and bring in some new characters, as opposed to making us wait 4 to 6 years to introduce new characters in movies, that's a great idea to do some TV shows. Let's get some ground level heroes going. When I heard Moon Knight was greenlit, I was super excited. But yeah, I'm just excitement and hope for more content, because I thought back then that more content meant better.
Right. So now we've gotten more content. We're quite a few years into more content. So let's ask the question, man. MCU shows, have they done more harm or have they done more good for the franchise? What do you think?
I think it's a complete failure, but that's just me.
Wow. A
I
complete failure. I
I
wouldn't go that far, but let's hear your thoughts. Why do you think it's a complete failure?
I think it's a complete failure, not because every single show has been dog water, but the thing is that Marvel tried something. They
Yeah.
didn't improve on it, and they're surprised at why all the viewership numbers are down. They're surprised at why all of these things are not working out for them. They started out high with WandaVision.
Hmm.
WandaVision was, in my opinion, one of the best because it actually felt like a TV show. It had an individual story for each episode where they changed the genres. You went 60s, 70s, 80s, yada, yada, until we get to the finale. That's another story. But it felt like an actual TV show. And I think from then on out, they didn't really try to fix anything. And now what we finished with Secret Invasion, that's like you said before, that's 9 Marvel projects
Yep.
that don't feel like they do much to really stand out. And I've said this on my channel a couple of times. I don't call myself a Marvel pessimist now, but the quality of projects that have come out in the last 3 to 4 years has turned me into a little bit more of an antagonist, because I'm disappointed time in and time out. I turn on these episodes every single week to be entertained and to find something of value that I found in previous MCU projects, but I keep striking out every single time. And I think that's what makes it a failure to me, is because the old Marvel would find ways to try new things with Guardians of the Galaxy, with having these major ensemble movies and figuring out how to make these things work. They always found a way, but it felt
Right.
so stagnant. And I would almost rather be in one world or the other, either suck really bad and then make you redo everything like DC, even though they're not really, rebooting the right way. But you flip that over to Marvel, they're not even like, what are they doing? I really have a aversion to mediocrity, and I think that's what makes the MCU shows a failure in my eyes, because obviously something's not working.
So of the two options, the harm or the good, are you landing firmly? Do you think it's just harm?
I think it's harm because I think that it's death by a million paper cuts. I think
Fascinating.
they're really trying so hard to have they want to have their cake and eat it too.
Mm,
So they want to have these projects spanning across movies and TV shows. But part of me wonders, did they even think about the lack of quality over quantity? Because what were we promised when they first announced all this? We were promised MCU level budgets. We were promised MCU level qualities and all of the characters that we know and love, while introducing some new ones.
Right.
That alone has me hooked. But the problem is that as the show started to go, anyone could tell that the budget felt cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, to the point where you have shows like Moon Knight, which is an incredible premise, but a lot of the CGI in it was so shoddy, especially towards the end with Moon Knight's costume. I was like, that's disappointing. And then She-Hulk, which, I feel like that was just a tax write-off, in my opinion. I feel like Disney just released that to have a tax write-off. But at the end of the day, nothing feels like, where's the MCU heart? Where's the MCU storytelling? Secret Invasion is another perfect example of, we were promised a political thriller with a lot of intrigue and a lot of guess who, and who's who. We don't know who the antagonist could be, and it was kind of akin to Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which is one of my favorite MCU movies of all time. That I was like, I'm in, I'm totally bought in, but they made it so watered down. They created this amazing idea and hyped it up as being the next big thriller, and then never gave us any thriller. It was gave us no thrills.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, so you can predict everything that's coming. They don't give you any nuance. It's like, they introduce everyone who you're supposed to know is the villain in the first couple episodes, and there's no hidden surprises or anything. It's just, you got through the first couple episodes, good for you, because there's no surprises waiting for you. And so as a whole, I have to keep looking at it as a whole, because I always do the same thing. I don't know if you do the same thing, where I start an MCU show. It's a cycle. I should make like a pie chart or something about it, where you start the show, you're excited. The first couple episodes get you hooked. You're like, I'm feeling good. I kind of like this. I see where this is going. Hey, if they pay off what they're setting up, count me in. Episode 4 or 5, you're like, oh, okay, all right, they cannot mess this up in the last 2 episodes. And then what happens?
They give Guy all the powers.
They give Guy all the powers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you take that and you apply that to every single MCU TV show. They almost all follow the exact same format of having these awesome ideas, and then they either have something like Moon Knight with a kaiju battle at the end, which kind of popped up out of nowhere, or you have Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is kind of saying, hey, I know Carly blew up a bunch of buildings and is a national terrorist, but she meant well. And it was like, it's things like that where it's like,
so true.
We have these incredible ideas, and then they just find a way to crap the bed every single time. And it's a bummer, because as a huge MCU fan, I hate to see, in a way, how far it's fallen. And She-Hulk even made fun of that. You know what I'm saying? They made fun of the fact that Marvel does this. So my question is, if She-Hulk is aware of what's going on, that means the writers are aware, which means Marvel knows what they're doing, and they're not changing it up. I just, mediocrity. That's.
I don't disagree with you on a lot of your points. Like, I think what you're saying, I totally relate to. But I do think that it's a little bit more black. It's not so black and white. I don't think it's just harm. I don't think it's just good. For example, one thing that I'll say before we move on, and we'll bring on Frank next, is that they have done some good, I think, with the characters. Because I will say this, before WandaVision, I could care less about Wanda. I could care less about Vision. Right. After that show, all of a sudden, Elizabeth Olsen is like the star of the MCU at this point.
Right.
So what do you think the MCU with the shows have done with some of their characters? Do you think they have enhanced some characters, or can you not find any good in these shows at all?
So I do tend to go a little bit more pessimist, just because my expectations are higher. When the bar has already been set, you expect the same level of quality. So again, my pessimism is more so of a reflection of what I wish it could be. But you're right. Sometimes you got to see the silver lining in everything. I believe that it definitely made Wanda a better character. But then imagine you're someone who hasn't seen WandaVision, and you go into Multiverse of Madness. You're like, why is Wanda killing all these people? Why in the world is she doing these despicable acts when she was, one of the best or most prominent, MCU heroes that was younger and we're getting to know? Why is she killing those people? So it's things like that where it kind of alienates a certain fan base. And if you don't have a Disney Plus subscription, then you're missing out. And it starts to create a little bit of that division. But I do believe that Wanda was good. I think, I want to even say someone like Loki, but that's not even the Loki that we really knew and love. It was literally a new Loki that has no prior memories. So you're meaning to tell me that you plucked Loki out of 2012 Avengers, who is as evil can be, and then he watches a slideshow of other Loki, and he's like, you know what? I feel like doing really good things right now. I feel like being a good guy. You know what I'm saying? So like even characters that I still loved, don't get me wrong. When someone asks me, "Are you an MCU fan?" Dude, I'm there opening night every single night. I will tune in. I will partake in any form of entertainment. Um, but it doesn't mean I can't be critical because of what I consistently see. Because again, I want to
Yeah.
say that Loki is a great character, but there's a caveat because it's like that's not the Loki that we know. So I want to say that they haven't outright, you know, trashed every single character. There's been great individual moments. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, is it really like could we have just benefited from maybe having one or two less projects over a span and maybe
Yeah.
share the love a little bit, maybe focus more on having 6 to 8 episodes of 45 minutes each and really delve into these characters because I want to know more about Falcon and his rise to Captain America. I want to know about how Moon Knight got his powers and connected with the deities. What is his name?
Uh,
Khonshu.
Conchu, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I want to know these things. I want to see Nick Fury get himself out of this hole he's dug himself because of his choices to utilize the scrolls as his little minions. I want to see all these things, but because they've tried to condense this to a 6 episode limit, where it's like 6 episodes, 50 minutes for the first episode, and you get 30 minutes the whole rest of the way. I think on a positive note, there's a way to fix it, but it means taking a step back, which I think Marvel is starting to do because they canceled all those projects, they delayed everything
Right.
before the writer's strike even happened. Like this happened like 6 months ago, where they were talking about how they want to go back to the drawing board. They're aware that something's up.
Absolutely, man. Well, look, I appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate you talking with me. I really enjoyed hearing your opinion. Before I bring on Frank here, why don't you tell the people where they can find you? One second, I just have to find out. Here it is.
All right, guys. So again, you can find me on YouTube at The Cosmic Broadcast. I'm also on Twitter as Broadcast Cosmic because Cosmic Broadcast got taken. Love to see that. And you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at The Cosmic Broadcast. And I think that's about it. Hit me up on YouTube anytime. Feel free to take a look at some of my older videos. I have every single MCU movie ranked coming up in the near future. But if you're into anything Marvel, Star Wars, DC, then I'd love to see you stop by the channel and say hey.
It's awesome, man. Well, once again, thanks for being here, man. We'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Have a
Zach.
good
You've been
rest of your
incredible.
weekend.
All
Thank
right.
you, man. All right, and here comes Frank. What's going on, man?
How's it going, Zach?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing? Thank you for being a channel member, and thank you for being here tonight, dude. Today.
Yeah.
I'm so used to saying tonight.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, I have those moments too. But yeah, you're very welcome, and thanks for having me here.
Of course, man. Well, thank you for being here. So, first question to you, same as to Jonah. What was the entrance into the MCU, and what got you hooked on it?
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna make it as short as I can because I could delve into details as much as I can because I love superhero movies. Marvel in particular is like my primary go-to, both comic books and movies and TV shows. When I first initially my fan, I guess I should say my fandom. my love for Marvel was very limited. It was limited to like X-Men and Spider-Man. And that was just it. Like that was it for many years growing up. I didn't delve into the comics as much. I did watch the animated series of X-Men, both the old one and the early 2001 X-Men Evolution. That's actually my favorite.
Nice.
Yeah, and so then there's the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy.
Oh, dude.
Yeah,
Love them.
That was always like something I re-binge over and over and over, regardless of how bad Spider-Man 3 is. I'll watch that regardless. Like that will always have a small, teensy tiny bit place in my heart. So there's that, and obviously there's the Bryan Singer's X-Men movies as well. Both 1 and 2 will always have a place in my heart. And there's that. And it wasn't until the end of 2018. And as everybody knows, 2018 is when Avengers Infinity War came out, right? And that like overtook every funny side, comedy side of memes, like just like not spoiling, but not spoiling the ending, like just left and right. And I had no idea what that was about. I had no idea what was going on. So I was completely oblivious about the whole thing. I was aware that Tom Holland was this new version of Spider-Man, and I did see Homecoming in theaters. I mean, like I said, it was only limited to Spider-Man, and that was it.
Right. So you were very casual. You were a very casual fan up until like 2018 when like the
Yes.
big boom of the MCU happened.
Yes, and let me tell you this. As far as franchise goes, I love those kinds of universe. I love when things are like interconnected. I mean, that's why I play a lot of Final Fantasy and Legend of Zelda in order of release. So I was like, you know what? Let me like just rent. I mean, there was some of the movies were playing on Netflix, but let me see what the hell this is all about. Like, let me start off.
Wow.
Let me start off from let me start this journey. You
Let me
know.
start from the top of 20 movies.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I knew what I was in for. Trust me, I knew what I was in for. And with work on top of that, like whatever, let's do this, right? So I did that. I started off chronological order, getting to know like the story of this Infinity Saga that we now know today. And I watched Cap, I watched Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Thor, the First Avenger, Guardians, and my head was just stimulated with this knowledge of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And from that, I started to gravitate towards the comics afterwards. And this was like by the time Endgame was about to be released, and it was being marketed like just constantly. Um, and so with that also came the TV shows from prior to Disney Plus. You got the Netflix shows like
Right,
Daredevil,
Daredevil and
yeah,
Jessica Jones and all
and
that.
Jessica Jones and the Defenders, basically. And then you have Agents of Shield. Agents of Shield, like I must have watched that by now, as of today, like 6 times already.
Nice.
Like I would know the show by heart by now. Um, so yeah, and then the announcement of the Disney Plus show, was spread out, and like I was like, I'm ready. I am ready to see what awaits us. Where's it all heading to now that we're done with the Infinity Saga overall? Like, you got One Division and Falcon and Winter Soldier. I was more excited for that one
Yeah, me too.
because Cap is, my all-time favorite Avenger. I mean, I'll just say that wholeheartedly. And see how how Cap's story, even though he's, I guess, gone seemingly.
Well, he's old
Yeah,
now, but we don't know if
yeah,
he's gone.
right, exactly. so let's see where it all goes. And I
So
think,
going
yeah.
off of that point actually right now, um so you say that you didn't get into the MCU till like 2018. So you've got like very fresh eyes on this. You don't really seem to have any nostalgia attached to it. It seems like the shows are just as fresh as your mind as the rest of the MCU is. So this is
Mhm,
actually a really interesting perspective to get.
mhm.
And as of right now, what do you think? More harm or more good?
Oof. Yeah, that's a question that's really tough to wrestle for someone who like just adores this universe, adores all these characters and the stories, really. Not to mention if you do read the comics, um, because prior to Secret Invasion just being released, I had time to like read the arc of Secret Invasion, and let me tell you, that is massive. It is a massive story that could have been its own saga.
But it fits into
And
6 episodes, right?
yeah. It all shrunk down into something that's like, like this is all that Marvel Studio can give us. So given that, and given to where we stand right now with these shows and all the feedbacks from viewers and, you know comic book fans, non-comic book fans, it's like, it's like, it's weird. It's like all the vibe just immediately crumbled when they realized, like, how overwhelming it's just become, how like just filled with all these ideas and unique perspective of these sides of the MCU that we never seen before and that are just being introduced in front of our faces. And I hear so many times, like, like if, someone's excited about this new show that's coming up,
Yeah.
there's Moon Knight, there's She-Hulk. I mean, She-Hulk is a lawyer comedy, supposed sitcom. Even, yeah, I mean, it's not really a sitcom per se, but
It tried.
yeah, it tried. It did. And then, there's What If, and then there's the special presentations, which in my opinion does enough, and they were brilliant. They were great, like Werewolf by Night and the holiday special that we got for Guardians. And now we have Secret Invasion, and it's right here that you realize, like, okay, I think we basically just had enough, because
So this is the one that broke your camel's back, is Secret Invasion.
Yeah, and I really adore spy thrillers, a good grounded drama, action political thriller, just being thrown in all together, and put aliens in that shit too. Like yeah, I'm all in, right? Let's see how this goes out. But really, like the CGI and the whole Gaia thing of it all, like it's whatever, right? Like, I can enjoy that for a bit. The big issue is just the lack of conviction that was dedicated to write and kind of pave the way for a story that is earned and it's delivered solidly, and that it could be talked about, and everybody can speculate together about, like, what is to come. And that's actually one of the major issue right now with these previous shows, is that there hasn't really been anything promising per se to kind of culminate in this new area that we're going to enter, this territory about, Secret Wars and, Kang, and
Right.
Anything else that's going to follow that. So it gives off that sense of like disconnect.
Right.
So
do you think that the shows, do you think it's their responsibility to connect to the movies and to connect to wherever their end goal is going forward? Because if you really think about it, they're TV shows. They're on Disney Plus. They're kind of separate from the theaters. Should there be a separation from the movies and the TV shows, like we've kind of been feeling? And I feel like a lot of people feel that frustration of, like, I watched the show and I have no idea where the rest of the MCU is going. But is that a bad thing? Is that a problem? What do you think about that?
I think that's like almost like a double-edged sword in a way, because
Right.
for most like myself, like, I want these shows to be connected, to the
I would
grander
love for them to
scope.
be connected. I'm super excited to see Miss Marvel show up in the Marvels. Like, to
Absolutely.
see her go to the big screen, I'm super excited about that. But the fact
Absolutely.
that you may have to have watched Miss Marvel in order to understand the movie, that's where I think a little bit of the harm comes in. So, like, if I was going to say the MCU shows being good is like, we got a great new character in Miss Marvel and Kamala Khan, but then you think of the harm and, like, well, the movie or even her character might suffer a little bit because you have to watch her on a show first, and not everyone's going to want to do that.
Right. No, and I agree completely. And I think this is why the idea that Marvel Studios is considering, like, greenlighting that show specifically, and only, I think, to be broadcasted in, like, ABC, for example.
Yeah.
And we don't know when that's going to happen, but and
I think
I'm all
August.
for that.
Oh, I think this month. I think it was this end of this month, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, there you go. And for people who don't use Disney Plus, who don't have an account, like, okay, they have that to access. And I'm sitting here and I ask myself, like, well, can they also do this with, like, WandaVision also?
Right.
Can they also do this with Falcon and Winter Soldier, prior to Cap 4 coming out? For those who have no idea about what's going on in the bigger universe. And that sort of brings me to the conversation I've had before with a few friends. Like, okay, they rather prefer to watch a series, like just binge watching it, right? So in a way, like Netflix does when they release, like, a new season of Stranger Things, all of them are available. Like, you can dedicate some time to watch that, and see how that does, because it's similar to like when a platform drops a movie and it's a new movie and it's exclusively for the streaming platform, and people just wants a fresh story to experience. They don't want to wait out bits by bits, week by week, and like that kind of takes away that hype and that excitement, not like us that we really love Marvel. So
Right. Well, that's the thing too, is like with us, like you're talking about, is like we're like drug addicts, you know? We know it's not good for us and we complain
mhm.
how we feel. And then the next thing's coming out and we're like, gimme, 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 gimme. Like we just want it, right? But I
Right.
mean, if you look at the MCU when they were in movies, when they were just strictly in theaters, I feel like they were more accessible to people
Mhm.
because it was like, oh, every like 3 times a year I go to the movies and I see the MCU movies. Whereas now when you have like 8 shows that have come out in what, the span of 2 years or something like that,
Oh
maybe even
yeah.
just a year and a half. I can't really remember. Time is weird. But that's homework for people all of a sudden. That's like
It
I have
is.
free time. You're asking me to invest 8 hours of my free time into just one of these shows. Not everyone's gonna do that. Do you think that has? I personally think that that's been the most harm done to the MCU, is the fact that people have now been given assignments from the studios. What do you think?
Yeah. I think that's well described. I mean, there really is no other way to explain or just state that this is right now where we stand, and not everybody is going to be in full agreement,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
absolutely.
Yeah. You know, and in retrospect, when you think about it more, like it makes sense. It makes sense that this is the first Secret Invasion was the first Disney Plus project that just came out recently.
Yeah.
Like we haven't had anything since like not since Guardians Holiday Special back in November, and that was like
Right.
7 months ago. Yeah. So we would say like, okay, that would be enough, but it's not that's the issue. Not just, it's the fact that you realize when you watch this and it seems promising, it seems engaging, but is it going to be delivered well? It all comes
Right.
down to the qualities that was supposed to be worked on more diligently. And unfortunately, you know uh it still aggravates me a little bit, just the more it's talked about, especially with that finale. So
Absolutely understandable, dude. Well, look, I appreciate you jumping on here, man. I appreciate you talking with me. We're gonna bring in Dark Movies next, but before we do that, tell the people where they can find you, man.
yeah, absolutely. So everybody can find me on YouTube, Twitter, now called X, and Instagram on Optimistic Forever. Just the word optimistic with number 4, and then ever, just all bunched together. And I make reviews of both films and TV shows, and I tend to make it a little fun, with a bit of comedy to it. But I get my thoughts out and just share my love for all these motion picture stories.
That's awesome, man. Well, once again, dude, thanks for being a member. Thank you for being here today, and you have a good rest of your weekend. Okay,
You as well, man. Take
we'll
care.
talk again soon. All right, we're gonna bring in Dark Movies here. What's going on,
Hello,
man?
hello. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's an honor. It is a pleasure to have you here, man. We are meeting for the first time. So, do you want to tell us your name?
I mean,
Or do
dark
you just want to go
movies.
by Dark Movies?
I can go by dark movies. Yeah,
Just Dark Movies? All right, no worries, man. We
I
just
have a
got Dark
Norwegian
Movies.
name, so like,
Yeah, no worries, dude. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the MCU, man. Where are you at with the MCU?
oof.
What was your entrance into the MCU, and how have you been feeling about it up until this point?
I mean, I absolutely love the MCU. I mean, as I remember, I think I just loved it from I was born almost. I can't really remember when I started watching it, and honestly, I just love the MCU. I've watched every single one up till now, and I remember when Infinity War and Endgame, I was just so hyped. I
Me
remember
too.
going to the theater with my friends to see Infinity War, and we just loved it both.
Yeah, man. Oh, dude, Infinity War was like the highlight of my movie life. Like as a movie
Yeah.
fan growing up, like especially the MCU, because like that was like my thing growing up. Like I saw Iron Man. My dad took me when I was just 9 years old. It was the very first thing that I saw MCU wise or Marvel wise besides Spider-Man, and I just fell in love with it, and I was invested ever since. And then the Infinity War was just like the culmination of that. It was incredible. So
Yeah,
coming off of Infinity War and Endgame, they announced the shows. They announced the Disney Plus Marvel shows. And
they
how are
did.
you
Yes,
feeling at that time when they announced the shows?
I was really hyped. I mean, I remember I think I started middle school, I think, and I used to actually watch. I think WandaVision. I used to watch one episode in like lunch break. So
Oh yeah, so it was like
uh,
a community thing to do with the friends.
yes, I was like really hyped, and then other shows came, and I still watched everything, and I was actually someone that actually like hasn't dissected the movies or TV shows like cinematography,
Yeah,
how that is and
very
stuff.
casual. You just like enjoying it for the enjoyment's
Yeah,
sake. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And I actually recently kind of like one year ago, I think, actually started dissecting it, and I can see why people actually love or hate it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
where do you think you land with the Disney Plus shows? Do you think there's more harm to the MCU with them, or do you think there's more good with them?
I mean, like I love some of these shows, like you see there, Loki and stuff, and
Yeah.
the the thing is that like you guys said earlier, like you have to have Disney Plus before actually
Hmm.
watching stuff, and I think that's the harm bit, yeah.
Absolutely.
And but I mean, some of the shows are good, and Loki, WandaVision actually was really good. I really enjoyed the sitcom things, and it's just like hit or miss for people at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think it's hit or miss for you, or have you enjoyed pretty much all
Mm,
of it?
I haven't watched Secret Invasion yet.
That's fair.
I need to go on that. So, I mean, I find Miss Marvel all right, She Hulk all right, but I mean the earlier shows I absolutely loved.
Right. So that was like WandaVision, Loki,
Yeah,
Falcon Winter Soldier.
yeah.
Those were like your. What was it about those ones that you liked so much?
Loki, I think it was just I like the even though it's a different Loki. I mean, like
Right.
that, and then but the TVA and the mysterious things about it, and for WandaVision, I love the sitcoms, and actually, that was actually my first sitcom, I think.
Yeah,
So
that was like ever that you've watched is
ever,
WandaVision.
ever.
Oh,
So
that's great, man. You got to go back if you liked WandaVision. You got to go back and watch like Dick Van Dyke and I Love Lucy and like see where all those like classic shows that they're
yeah,
talking about come from.
yeah, and then I mean Falcon and Winter Soldier. I just even ever since Captain America just put on the shield to Sam, I was really invested how his story was going to go, and that show just really just got me hyped.
Right. So what's interesting about the shows that you're saying that you really liked are like WandaVision, Loki, Falcon Winter Soldier, all pre-existing characters, mostly secondary characters from the movies that came more into the spotlight with their shows. What do you think about how they've used the shows to introduce new characters like Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk? Do you think those have worked well, or do you think they've worked not so well? Or is there something like in the middle there?
It is maybe in the middle. Some of the characters are interesting. I actually enjoyed also Moon Knight a little bit. I forgot to mention that. And but the She Hulk, just the quality of the show wasn't great, and
Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
The Daredevil
so,
episode though, that was pretty sick.
yeah, I love Daredevil episodes.
I really
Honestly,
enjoyed that one.
I think I watched the Daredevil. I think about 1 year before She Hulk came out. So I
Yeah,
watched Daredevil there.
I've never watched the Daredevil on Netflix, so that was like
Uh,
my introduction to the character in She-Hulk, and I liked him. I'm looking forward to seeing Daredevil Born Again just
yeah,
based off
honestly,
of that.
yeah.
So in that
Right.
way, like you can even like take that for example as like that's good for the MCU. Like they introduced to them a new character in one of their shows. They got me excited. I'm looking forward to seeing him continue more. If there was something, if there was like one big good thing that the MCU shows have done and one big harmful thing that they've done, what do you think those would be for you? One good, one harm.
The harm bit maybe is the quality and how they didn't approve on that. And of course, like you have to have Disney Plus. And the good, I just like just a feeling, I don't know, feeling how I get like when a actual good show, you know,
Right, like you
airs.
get invested,
Yeah.
it's gotten you hooked. Like you've had moments in the shows that have brought you enjoyment.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Much.
And like that's all that we're looking for from our shows, right? And our movies and our entertainment is we want to be entertained. So
Yeah.
in your perspective, it sounds like the MCU shows have done good for the franchise because they've given you more entertainment from it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it was mixed, but I
Yeah,
mean,
very
some of
mixed.
the shows and some of the shows are bad, and some of the good. So hit or miss.
But overall, would you say that you would have, after seeing these 8 shows that we've gotten up until this point, and we're going to be getting more, it sounds like, where we're standing right now, do you overall wish that they never had done the shows, or are you happy that they did the shows?
I'm happy they did try something new, but I'm not happy when they actually doesn't approve on that. Like they doesn't
Mm,
approve about quality or anything, or just they producing so much shows like pushed like in that year, like 5 shows in that year and stuff like that.
right. So they've overextended themselves.
Yeah.
They've devalued the quality of the overall product, and that's definitely been a harmful thing. I completely agree with you, man. With that, I think that's a really great perspective and yeah, outlook to bring to it. Well, I appreciate you talking with me, man. I appreciate you
It's
being
been
here
an
today.
honor.
And please tell the people where they can find you before I bring on Ken.
Yeah. So I'm DxrkMovies. I have a script, I'm an upcoming YouTube channel with I just recently got 100 subscribers,
Woo!
and I do movie ranking, updates, reaction, and reviews, and more coming. So it would mean a lot to me. At least check my channel out, and if you like it, subscribe or two. Yeah, subscribe, and also subscribe to Zach. He also makes so awesome videos. But thanks for having me on the show.
Dude, thank you for being here. And we'll talk again soon, man. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. And last but not least, we're going to talk to, well, you're about to see for yourself. It's Ken.
Great play on words. How you doing, Zach?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing? Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a member. And it's a pleasure and an honor to meet you, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I'm like really excited to be here because you've just been a really good presence in this space, and yeah, I enjoy your content, and I think I'm going to enjoy talking to you as well.
Oh man, I appreciate that greatly, man. So we're talking about the MCU. You said
Yeah,
when we posted this that you could talk about this for hours. So
absolutely.
you're the last guest. You got till the end of the show, man. Let's talk about it. What's your experience with the MCU? What got you hooked into the MCU? How are you feeling about it today?
Sure. So, the MCU specifically, I started with, of course, Iron Man, just like everybody else. But in terms of like Marvel in general, I've been watching Marvel content since the 90s. Since the Spider-Man animated series, the X-Men animated series, both of those. Also, sidebar, the X-Men animated series is the greatest intro of any cartoon ever. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
You can't beat it, maybe except for Batman. Anyway, so yeah, like I've loved Marvel and Marvel content since I was a youth, and it naturally just like going into the MCU with Iron Man. I really had a really great time with that movie, and then I didn't have a great time with Hulk, and then I didn't have a great time with Iron Man 2, and then I had a great time with Captain America and a good time with Thor. So it's always been kind of this like, okay, these are fun. This is like it's fun. But then when the Avengers rolled around,
Avengers.
I was like, oh, this is serious. Oh, we're in this. Like as even like the lead up with Captain America and the post credit scene there when he was like, he's in New York now and he's meeting Nick Fury, and it's like, oh wow, we're we're going for it. So it's been fun since then. Not always great, not always bad, but fun. It's
Yeah.
just been a good experience. But
Yeah,
I've
no,
been invested.
I remember when the Avengers came out, man. I was 13. I might have just been turning 14. 2012, and it was like I liked the movies. I liked Iron Man. I liked Hulk at the time. Thor and Captain America. Like they were all really fun movies. And then you had this concept that they were all going to be in a movie together.
Yeah.
And like there's some younger people watching for sure. That was never a thing that people thought about.
Never.
Like as a kid,
Never.
that was inconceivable that
Yeah.
movie characters were going to interact with other movie characters that I personally loved. So when the Avengers came, that was like my Star Wars. Like I remember the opening of that. I remember seeing it with my cousins. I remember where I sat. I remember the New York battle in the end. Like that's
Yes.
definitely where they had this guy for life, was with the Avengers.
Absolutely. The Avengers was crazy because I didn't know that they could pull something off like that. How are you going to balance all of these leads in this one movie and make it fluid and make it seem like a one cohesive thing without everybody kind of vying for time? So it's such an incredible achievement. And then to top that with Infinity War and Endgame, like they kept achieving this cohesion that it seemed seamless at the time. So props
they made
to
it look easy.
Yeah, props to the writers and Kevin Feige and all those people who are behind it, just putting that together, because I mean that's an incredible run.
Yeah, and Sarah Halley Finn is like an unspoken hero who casted all the heroes, casted all
Yes.
these people that we've come to love. Like she has
Yes.
nailed it every single time. It's incredible.
I can't think of a single bad casting in the MCU.
No,
Not
even
one.
characters that like I'm not like particularly that fond of, I still
Right.
thought they were casted very well.
Yeah, I know a lot of people will probably say Captain Marvel, but honestly, for the character that was portrayed
Yeah, I thought
and the
Brie
story
Larson
that
did a
they
good
were
job.
telling, they did a great job. The complaint there is always, oh, she's wooden, she has no emotion. I don't know if people caught the context in the beginning of the movie that said that she wasn't allowed to have emotion. That's
Yeah.
kind of the concept here. And then she's gaining like emotional freedom and mental freedom like throughout the rest of the movie. Now, do I like that movie? It's fine. It's cool. I'm not
Yeah,
like
I
super
don't mind
high
it.
on it. I'm also not super low on it. But let's have I'm very big on accurate critique, like critique that's not super hyperbolic. Everything is the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. Let's have a conversation and really talk about it. But yeah, I love the MCU, man. I could talk about this, like I said, forever.
All right, well, let's get to it. Let's talk about Phase 3 wraps, right? And Phase 3 is like, oh my goodness, MCU's at the top of the world. They did Infinity War, they did Endgame. Nothing can bring this down. And then they announce, hey, we got Disney Plus. We're doing shows. How are you feeling about that when they announced the shows? Because I was excited when they announced the shows, but I also did have that feeling of like, ooh, I hope that this isn't going to affect the movies too much, because I know for a fact my grandparents who do go to the MCU movies, they are not going to sit down and watch all these shows. So if they bleed into the movies too much, which, as mentioned by, I believe, Cosmic Broadcast, or Frank brought it up, WandaVision really led into Doctor Strange, to the point that if you don't watch WandaVision, the whole motivation for Wanda and Doctor Strange, you just don't get it. So
Right.
what were you thinking when they announced these shows initially?
Well, when they announced the shows, I was into it. I thought that it was a good idea. I did question, exactly what your question was, which is how are they going to get people to what happens if people don't go to Disney Plus to watch these shows and then return to the movies and they're like, wait, who's this? Wait, why is Wanda tripping? What's happening?
Yeah.
So like there's all of those risks there, but because the MCU had built such a big cachet with me because of everything that they had done before, I was like, okay, cool, I'll roll with it. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And if it does work, it does work. Yeah, so I was kind of like, I was just excited for the idea of it.
Right. So now we are, like I said, 8 live action shows, 9 shows in total into this. We've seen WandaVision, Loki, Falcon Winter Soldier, new characters, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, She-Hulk. How are you feeling about the state of it right now? Do you think it's done more harm, or do you think it's done good?
Personally, I think it's done more harm
Mm.
than good. And I think a lot of that has to do with the format in which they decided to tell these stories. And also, you know, seeing how it's developed over the past year, year and a half, 2 years. I can't really tell. The pandemic screwed up my time.
I know, right?
Um,
Me too. I'm like,
um,
wait, that was 3 years ago? No, it wasn't.
yeah. Watching the execution of it was, or after experiencing the execution of it, I feel like it's done more harm than good for a few reasons. Number one are all the reasons that you mentioned before. My father, who's 60, he's watched all of the movies. I think the only show he's watched is Secret Invasion because it has Samuel L. Jackson in it, and he loves Samuel L.
Right.
Jackson, right?
Which
I
he
don't
was
think he's
fantastic in Secret Invasion. Like, as much as I like problems I have with Secret Invasion, Samuel L. Jackson was great.
Let me tell you something right now. If anybody has any complaints about performances, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they were all so good.
Watching Ben Mendelsohn and Don Cheadle and Samuel L. Jackson, as well as I'm forgetting Elizabeth. I'm forgetting her name.
Emily or Clark something, or what is it? Amelia Clark.
Amelia Clark was really good in the show as well. But I'm thinking of the actress who played Sonia.
Oh,
Have you?
oh
Frozen?
man, I don't
Have you
remember.
frozen?
I can't remember her name.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember her name either, unfortunately. But yeah, so the actress who played Sonia, she was probably the standout performer in that show for the small role that she had. But however, and I'm so sorry, I almost forgot. The actress who plays Samuel Jackson's wife in the show.
I loved them. I loved them together.
She was incredible. Like the thing I love about those performances, specifically between her and Nick and Don Cheadle, and Nick and Talos or Talos. It changes every time someone says it. Was the genuineness in it. Everything seemed, it didn't seem super acty. It felt like these people are really having these conversations and having these issues. So that is a bright spot of the show.
Yeah, I agree. And the conversation of harm are good. That's something good that came out of it for sure. Because I loved getting to see that relationship with Nick Fury and his earthly wife, who's a Skrull. And I loved getting those performances. And there was a lot in Secret Invasion. Like up until the last episode, I was enjoying the show quite a bit.
I loved the show until the last episode.
Yeah,
I was all into it. I love the spyness of it. I love. Kingsley Ben-Adir was fantastic during this. Gravik was fantastic during this entire show.
Yes,
which
he
is
was.
why I disliked the last episode so much, because his resolution was unsatisfactory.
Mm-hmm.
He pours his heart out to Nick Fury to not even be him, and it's kind of like this
that
thing
bothered me too.
where it's like you didn't even get the satisfaction of, you're probably going to die, unfortunately, because for whatever reason they create these great characters and then discard them. He had a real legitimate beef with Nick Fury, as did everybody in the show. And I think the thing that's most disappointing about the show is that it changes practically nothing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the president is after the Skrulls a lot harder and is aware of the Skrulls. But other than that, what happens? Nick Fury comes down from Earth. He gets lambasted about all the characters about how you abandoned the Skrulls, didn't find them a new home, promised that you would. You come back to say that you're going to fix your wrongs, and that the last scene of the show is, hey, I'm going back up to my ship. I heard you guys have had a president problem, and he's hunting y'all now. I will see you guys later. I got some other stuff to do. Hey, Robert, will you come with me? Yeah, I'll come with you, but I got to come back. Okay, cool. And then, so what's happening to this entire community of Skrulls who don't have Gravik, who don't have their leaders, and are now without any kind of direction at all? They are in a worse state now than when you came back. So like, what really happened during this show? So I don't know. And that's also the question for the writers. What is the point of this show? what is the point? There seems the point can't be. I refuse to believe that the point is we need a new character in Emilia Clarke's character to have all the powers of every Avenger and opponent of the Avengers that were at the Battle of Earth. That's what we
Yeah.
need, because I refuse to believe that was the case. Also, what was that decision?
That's so weird. That whole
it's-
TNA thing was so weird to
Such a
me.
strange decision for a character that and I don't know if you know, but I feel deeply will not be important going forward. Like, she may show up from time to time, but I don't see her as a major player.
No.
Because it's impossible for her to be a major player. It's the Superman problem.
You write
It's
yourself
also
in a
the
corner
fact
anytime you use her, because if she's there, you got no problems.
right. It's like, hey, can you take
Yeah, that's about it. Hey, Kang, we got Gaia. You're done.
Right, which
Like,
is why, like, the Superman problem or the Captain Marvel problem, where the character is so powerful that in order for there to be a conflict, it has to be someone who they know close to them who's having either in trouble, or there has to be a relational conflict. It cannot be a physical conflict, because there's no one to physically challenge them that you actually believe is going to defeat them. So that's why Captain Marvel comes in at literally the tail end of Endgame, because she can't be there during any other time. So it's like,
yeah, absolutely. No, you got a great point there. So, we talk about Secret Invasion a lot, but like going back through the filmography or whatever of the series thus far, is there a series that like you are glad that we got, like that you're like, you know what, the shows may not have all worked for me, but I am so glad that we got this?
Yeah, there's 4 actually, maybe 5, but Loki is incredible. Loki's incredible because its vision is realized from start to finish, and it ends exactly the way that is going to be weird. It ends exactly the way that it wanted to end. It gave you, a fulfillment of the character. Loki feels like a completely different character by the end of his journey. We meet he remains. We have a new character in Sylvie who's incredible. And Mobius as well. Everybody in that show, including Miss Minutes, who I never trusted from the beginning. I don't trust Miss Minutes. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
The moment I met her, I was like, she's it. She's the one. And seeing her on the new poster as being kind of, I see you, Miss Minutes. Anyway, so yeah, all of those characters were fantastic, and I just thought it was really well made and really well produced. Then you also have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I really enjoyed that entire show.
The pandemic, I don't blame that show too much for its problems too, because the pandemic really affected that. Like, they had to like rethink their whole premise basically, because it had to do with the virus and stuff that they totally rewrote.
Yeah. So, and you could see how that could cause a lot of issues, because you don't want to be too close to reality in a sense, because it's still fresh. Like, you could see a pandemic movie coming out maybe 2 years from now. That's okay. Yeah, we are all there. We all experienced it, but you want to do it in the midst of a pandemic, making a pandemic show. But yeah, so except for there was a movie that came out, I think on Hulu, that was about the pandemic. It was a very strange choice, but anyway, I really enjoyed that entire show. I think the Carly bit of it does suffer a bit from exactly what you're talking about. However, I think that we forget, and I don't blame us for forgetting, but I think that we forget how good U.S. Agent was in that show.
Wyatt Russell.
Wyatt Russell. He was fantastic, especially as like a faux Captain America. You hated him because of the character's actions, not because you didn't like Wyatt Russell's performance. He invoked the exact emotion that they were setting out to give you, and he was also he was a great foe for that show. And now he's going to be going for, I think, in Thunderbolts, which I'm excited to see him again. I want to see what his progression is. Even like seeing like the end of the show where he helps save people. So he's not like just this evil guy. He actually has a lot of empathetic tones to him as well, because he was kind of pushed into this situation. Anyway, I'm sorry. I can go on about it all day.
Absolutely, man. No, that was good. Look, I really appreciate you jumping on with me, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate you talking with me today. We
Absolutely.
are out of time at the moment, so I'm
Sure.
gonna let you tell you where the people can find you, and we'll talk again soon.
Cool. So yeah, my name is Ken from See For Yourself. See For Yourself is on YouTube. Feel free to subscribe. Check out the content that I have laid out there. The entire concept of See For Yourself is I'm going to tell you my opinion about movies and how I think and feel, and still encourage you to form your own opinion. Because I think that it's a good thing for you to come and talk to me and us to discourse and disagree or agree. But either way, I never want you to avoid anything because of how I feel about it. And I never want you to just agree with me out of nowhere. So go see for yourself. That's the entire concept. I hope you guys come see me for yourselves on the YouTube channel. And yeah, thank you, Zach, for having me. And I will see you soon.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much again for being here. Thank you for being a channel member, and thank you for waiting and being the last guest, man. I know that it was a little bit of a wait, but it was great seeing you, and it was great meeting you.
Likewise, no problem. I had just woke up at like 12:59, so it worked out.
Perfect. All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You as well. Talk to you soon.
Bye. All right, guys, and that was the first episode of Members Talk Live. So the question is for you now: has the MCU done more harm or has it done more good with introducing Disney Plus shows? Comment down below and let us know.